In the morning, St. Peter's Square is an amazing scene as 700,000 throng to hear the dogma, which for the 400 million Roman Catholics of the world proclaims the bodily ascension of the Virgin Mary to heaven.
On November 1st, 1950, after a 95-year global petition drive from the laity and years of strong debate inside the Vatican, Pope Pius XII proclaimed the dogma of the bodily assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary into heaven. In doing so, he exercised papal infallibility as the vicar of Christ, the only human being on earth who can proclaim a dogma. Many may ask, what is a dogma?
Is a truth of the faith which all the Catholics have to believe. And it is declared explicitly by a council or by the Pope himself, as was, for example, for the two last dogmas, the Immaculate Conception and the relation to the heaven of Our Lady, also with the body. This was a solemn dogma announced by the Pope.
The support from the laity and disagreement within the Vatican ranks experienced by Pius XII was nothing new. Pope Pius IX was encouraged by a petition drive for several years before the proclamation of the Immaculate Conception, a truth which he proclaimed in 1854 over the earlier doubts of the princes of theologians, St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Bernard of Clairvaux. The tradition of challenge and subsequent obedience to the one holding the keys of Peter and their inherent promise of authority from Christ continued when Pope Paul VI rejected the recommendations of a papal commission and issued the very controversial encyclical Humanae Vitae. Once again, a Holy Father stands on the threshold of human history and finds himself asked by the faithful to proclaim what many believe will be the fifth and final Marian dogma: Mary Co-redemptrix, Mediatrix of all graces, and Advocate of all people. A petition drive sponsored by Vox Populi Maria Mediatrici, a Latin title meaning the voice of the people for Mary Mediatrix, has collected nearly 5 million petitions from 157 countries since 1993 in this global campaign for the papal definition of the dogma. On September 24th, 1997, John Paul II made one of his strongest statements defending Mary's unique role in redemption and her corresponding titles as Mediatrix and Advocate.
Maria es madre de la humanidad en el orden de la gracia.
Mary is mother of humanity in the order of grace. The Second Vatican Council highlights this role of Mary, linking it to her cooperation in Christ's redemption. It also recalls that the gift of her universal spiritual motherhood stems precisely from this cooperation, associated with Christ in the work of redemption, which includes the spiritual regeneration of humanity. She becomes mother of those reborn to new life. As maternal mediatrix, Mary presents our desires and petitions to Christ and transmits the divine gifts to us, interceding continually on our behalf.
So it's a theological, open discussion. And we know in the history of the Church, for instance, for the history of the dogma of Immaculate Conception, even great saints like St. Thomas of Aquins have been contrary to the proclamation of the dogma of Immaculate Conception. But because the definitive judgment about a possibility to define as a dogma the doctrine of Mary Co-redemptrix and her maternal mediation and plan of salvation lies only at the end, in the hands of the Holy Father.
A dogma is the perfection of doctrine. And when you perfect a doctrine, you make it most palatable for the most people. And so, as Pius IX did for the Immaculate Conception, he purified, He perfected what was already of doctrine. That is what we are humbly asking our Holy Father to do, to purify and articulate perfectly as we can humanly do, the doctrine of Our Lady Co-redemptrix, Mediatrix, Advocate. Mary Co-redemptrix, Mediatrix, Advocate is already official magisterial teaching of the Church. Our Holy Father has used the title Co-redemptrix 5 times during his pontificate, more than any other Holy Father.
Over 40 cardinals, as well as 500 bishops and numerous theologians around the world, are supporting the Vox Populi movement, presenting to Pope John Paul II a united cohort of church hierarchy and laity, requesting proclamation of the dogma.
The Vox Populi movement's informality has been a factor that attracted many Marian lovers from all dioceses of India to its cause. All have identified Vox Populi as an expression of the sensus fidelium manifesting itself through laity, clergy, religious, and hierarchy throughout the world. All those who responded to Vox Populi's prayer and petition campaign are moved by the yearning of hearts to reach ever closer to Jesus through his mother, convinced of the ecclesial need for a papal definition of the maternal mediation of Mary to proclaim the whole truth about her.
The first Marian dogma was defined in 431 at the Council of Ephesus, which proclaimed Mary to be Theotokos, Mother of God. This is something that all Christians, Protestants, Orthodox, and Catholics agree on. The second Marian dogma was proclaimed in 649, that is Mary's perpetual virginity. The third one, in 1854, that is Mary's Immaculate Conception, that she was conceived without original sin and with the plenitude of divine grace. The fourth one was in 1950, that is Mary's Assumption into heaven, both body and soul. This fifth Marian dogma would really be the climax of a long historical process where Mary's motherhood would really be explained in terms of her role as co-redemptrix, mediatrix, and advocate.
The 4 previous Marian dogmas express Mary's earthly prerogatives, and the 5th dogma, co-redemptrix, mediatrix, and advocate, will officially recognize her continued heavenly intercession for us.